Okay, so it's match day here at the Aviva Stadium. Just a couple of hours to go now until the Republic of Ireland's first qualifier in this World Cup qualifying campaign. Of course, it is Georgia here at the Aviva Stadium. We're going to review this morning's newspapers, and delighted to say our regular analyst Alan Cawley is here with us. So too Dan McDonnell from the Irish Independent and Emmet Malone from the Irish Times. Gents, you're very welcome.
Thanks, Bernard.
Emmet, I suppose if we start with the approach this week, would it be fair to say it's been a bit of a low-key kind of approach?
Yeah, it's a difficult one to get your head around, I think. There isn't too much awareness really of Georgia, despite the fact that we have a bit of history with them. And the management team have been really keen to try and kind of talk them up a bit, guarding against complacency. I guess a message that they're sending any way they can back to their own players, but also I think to the public, trying to make it clear that this is going to be no walkover, which anybody who saw the game a year or two ago here in Lansdowne Road will probably be aware of already.
You've been on the beat, obviously, as well this week with Martin O'Neill, and there has been that kind of theme throughout the week, this whole, listen, we're taking it one game at a time, Georgia are going to be tough.
It's like extreme one game at a time talk. Any mentioning of Moldova or the potential of 6 points across the week is just a no-go topic. Martin O'Neill mentioned at the start of the week that he had some friend who said that to him at one point and he wanted to throttle him. No, this isn't allowed, so it's one game at a time. But I suppose he does have recent knowledge of how difficult Georgia can be. It's a slightly strange one because I suppose with Ireland the perception is that we are maybe a stronger team as underdog. We perform better as an underdog. But actually, our recent record against, say, lowly ranked teams is quite good. We've beaten Georgia every time that we've played them. We just never beat them easily. So it's I can understand why he's probably guarding against any bigger picture talk. Although the flip side of that, of course, is most players that we've spoken to have all said, 6 points this week, that's what we want. But Martin is very much on the one game at a time mantra.
Alan, you're here with us tonight in the Aviva fan studio with Kevin Kilban for the match. Are you coming here tonight fearful of Georgia in any way?
I'm not, but I can understand why Martin O'Neill might be, because as the manager, I suppose you have to portray that bit of respectfulness towards the opposition as well, Bernard. And to be fair, throughout the whole tenure that Martin has been in charge, that's been the mindset no matter who the opposition. So it's nothing new for me to hear him obviously try and speak up Georgia a little bit. That's only natural. But in terms of us coming to watch the game as fans, as pundits, journalists, whatever the case may be, I think you have to go in tonight looking to get 3 points and picking up 3 points, especially with the group being so competitive. The higher ranked teams in terms of obviously Wales, Austria, Serbia and ourselves, they'll all take points off each other, but you'd have to be looking at Georgia, Moldova as games, particularly at home, that you have to be picking up the 3 points, simple as that.
There's a common theme, I suppose, Alan, in this morning's newspapers that it's this quote that Martin O'Neill gave us yesterday at the press conference where he wants more goals, and in particular from that midfield area.
Yeah, it's across all the papers. We've read stories about it, and obviously Jeff Hendrick is the main one that's been picked out. It'd be interesting as well, I suppose, if Brady was a regular in midfield. I think he's one that could definitely add goals from midfield, but he tends to play left full a lot of the time.
Was there part of that he was more comfortable talking about Hendrick or goals in midfield than the obvious question of Robbie's been replaced by Shane Long and more pressure on Shane to produce the level of goals that Robbie has done?
Yeah, look, the bottom line is we're not going to get those goals on such a regular basis from him. Keane used to take a little bit of stick at times about not scoring enough goals in the biggest games, but obviously that was hugely linked to how the team overall would be set out and how much pressure we'd be under. What he did do is get us out of countless corners in games like tonight's, and if Long goes a quarter of the way towards that and the midfield chip in, then it will go some way towards solving the problem.
Emmet, what do you make of Stephen Reid's piece in the Irish Independent this morning, where he talks about our best tactic is Irish passion and aggression? And
it's interesting that the heights this kind of debate is reaching at the moment. I mean, I think it's been framed to some extent by Stephen Kenny at Dundalk and the way he looks for his team to play and how successful they've been. And he was very passionate a week or so ago around the Maccabi game, talking about this perception that playing football, playing the beautiful game, isn't really in the Irish DNA, and how he didn't accept that, and he wanted his players to go out and express themselves. All the positive talk, he really very strong on it, And what we have today is kind of the counterpoint between Pat Dolan, who's really railing against the idea that Roy Keane would kind of in some way engage in a debate about whether Irish players can play football, and Stephen Reid, who's just really kind of pretty much out there going, it's about to some extent blood and guts. It's about passion. It's about putting your body on the line for your country, and that this is what the Irish teams have been great for. I mean, there's a lot to be said for that, and we've had some really great nights where there wasn't a lot of great football, but it's beyond that, I think, a question of what you aspire to. I can absolutely understand that Martin O'Neill comes in and takes over a team that doesn't have a great record of playing particularly good football. Trapattoni, I mean, if you go back to Trapattoni, the debate that Trapattoni was constantly denying that he was a negative, direct manager. He simply said, this is the bunch of players that I've got. I've weighed up what I can do with them, how I can best get results out of them. And this is the approach I'm going to take. Look at my club record to see that I did things differently when I had better players. So I can understand that O'Neill takes over a group of players and can't transform them overnight. But beyond that, it's a question of what we aspire to as a team and as a nation in footballing terms, the players we want to produce for the future. Right now, I don't think, we see constantly, it's remarkable at times, even against weaker opponents, our apparent inability to retain the ball, for prolonged periods of time. As soon as any pressure is put on us, we end up going long and we routinely lose possession.
But it's an interesting debate, though. It seems like the players of a particular generation. I mean, Richard Dunn a couple of weeks ago pretty much echoed.
He kind of started the debate.
Yeah, what Stephen Reid is saying there. We are better when we play direct and press high, and there is a point in that they will make, that actually you come in for an international week and you have maybe 2 days training before a game, and actually there is very little work from their perspective that you can do, and that really your attitude has to be right. And the biggest strength for Irish teams has been their attitude. And maybe I totally take Stephen Kenny's point on board, and I do probably agree with it. But he does have the ability with his Dundalk team to work with them all the time. Whereas sometimes this Irish team come in for 2 days,
that's fair enough.
and they've a limited time to work on.
But there's also
a
sense in which the team is developing that. I mean, if you take Shane Duffy, who's coming in now and really kind of seen as quite a prospect. Well, Shane Duffy is still at championship level in England making defensive errors. He had a very kind of ropey start to the season. In France, we saw how inexperienced he is. But everybody kind of thinks he's going to be very soon, if not tonight, very, very, very quickly a regular in this team. And it's partly, or in large part, because of the threat he poses at the other end. He's such a good header of the ball. He poses a threat at set pieces, corners, free kicks. Brady is outstanding at taking those, and that again seems to be the way that we're gearing ourselves to pose a threat. Not from play. I'm not saying we'll turn our noses up at it, but a lot of the thinking behind this team is geared to a particular type of play.
That brings us on nicely to the question of team selection. You mentioned there, Wes. Do you envisage Wes playing, or do you think Robbie sticks with midfield? Could Robbie Brady move back to left full back, or at this stage does he need to kind of back him as that, perhaps that next number 10?
I think with Martin O'Neill team selections, we can just talk around this forever, and possibly come sort of 7:30 we're looking at something completely different. I had a sense, I mean, he sort of spoke yesterday, he referenced the fact about when he uses Wes, and did reference that he would play him at home at times. He's been expert at unlocking teams, and I would think that if Wes doesn't start the home game against Georgia here, you sort of wonder what games will he start in the group. And it may well be that this is just a transition whereby he does just come off the bench in these games. I sort of went for him to play, but I wouldn't say there's full confidence in that. I think there's two probably debates tonight. Is James McCarthy fit? If he's fit, do James McCarthy and Glenn Whelan play, or is it either or? And I suppose if Wes plays, are you looking at Robbie Brady or James McLean, or Robbie Brady switching to left back? I think there's like 13, 14 players that you can say they're going to be the 11's going to come from that. But it's the sort of the way in which he utilises his midfield, I think, which is the big question mark.
But the other, obviously the top seeds are kind of playing each other. These are a great chance, as we said. The manager can say it, we can say it. We need to get 6 points. Surely it's a positive team selection. Have a go here.
Yeah, I think so. And to some extent, what has kind of defined, how positive O'Neill was being was whether he played Brady at left back or Ward. Now Ward kind of has come back into it. He was playing him a lot even when Ward wasn't fully fit. But Brady has done exceptionally well in a couple of games in midfield now, and he looks harder to dislodge from that. I mean, if you go back to Houlihan, towards the start of last campaign, O'Neill was saying, this is a guy who you can only really trust. The sense of him was that this was a guy you could only trust in these games at home, that he was, looked more of a luxury in away games. And yet, as the campaign went on, he became more central to what we did, and he played in some very big games, and became a far more central figure. figure. I think Brady's, emergence as a more key figure in midfield possibly edges Houlihan out slightly, and Ward has performed solidly. Brady's other problem is that over the course of the last campaign, and it shouldn't be such an issue tonight, but it could be, over the course of the last campaign, he was culpable in more goals that we conceded than any other defender. The defending side of his game is still really not what it should be. So you're losing something of the attack. I mean, he certainly gives you something going down the left. He goes forward very well. He can influence the game from left back. And O'Neill has talked about the influence he can have with the whole game in front of him. But I think he's becoming a more centrally important figure for us in midfield, and I think that's going to be to Houlihan's cost.
Alan, if Robbie Brady's only getting used to the left full back position, and he's also only getting used to that number 10 role, does Martin have to back him in one position and just say, right, that's where you're going to play for me?
Yeah, but then the problem with that is club manager, and where's he asking him to play? And I think Norwich play him a lot at left full too. So, but definitely, if, as Emmet said, if it's a case of you're transitioning from losing that Houlihan creative element and Brady's going to be the one to take over, maybe now's the time to say, this is it. This is where I'm going to pin him down, kind of thing. But I still think there's room for the two of them, to be honest. Now, I'm all out attack, as you know. But I definitely think, especially in games like this, tonight I'd actually go with, because I think Whelan's days now, I think we've seen enough of Whelan, to be honest with you. I'd actually go for, depending on whether he's fit, but I think McCarthy's a much better player when Whelan's not around. And especially in that game, France, that we mentioned, I thought he was brilliant. Against France, in that deepest lying role, he reads the game really well. He has now he has his faults that people kind of criticise him for, but I think McCarthy has a lot to offer when he's on his own. It was the same when he played Germany here last year, in that position on his own when Whelan's not beside him holding his hand. I think McCarthy's a much better player, so I'd go McCarthy, Hendrick, Brady in midfield, because as Emmet said, I think Stephen Ward has done really well at left full, and he's fully capable of doing the job. So I think you're actually taken away from the team. Brady's a far better player. He's far too good a player to be playing left full when you can have him in midfield. And I'd go for Wezzo in front of him in a diamond shape, and I'd have Long and Walters. Again, as I say, because of the opposition. Because this is a game that you have to go out and take the match to them and obviously get the 3 points. And you want as much creativity on the pitch as possible.
Time's up against us. Give us a line of a score prediction and who's going to win. I'm
never confident about games, I have to say, but I definitely think we have to win tonight, and I do think we'll get the job done, depending on the team selection, if he goes with mine.
Kind of sidestep that one there. Emmet, more clarity from you perhaps?
Yeah, well, not much more. Like Alan, I'm never really confident, but I think we'll win because I think we have to win. And we do have a habit of just about getting the results, particularly under O'Neill, that we need. I mean, he's been a remarkable manager for getting big results out of the team on nights that we really needed them. Those nights, on the face of it, come later in the campaign, but my God, if we slip up tonight, we're going to be chasing things. So I think we'll win, maybe 2-1, the traditional. We'll score an early goal, think we're going to coast, concede one, and then scramble the victory.
I hope we win. I think we'll win. Dan, pressure's on you now.
I don't know what's the other combination. We should win. I think we worry about Georgia. It's just briefly mentioning all the ex-Georgian players. I mean, we spoke to Shota Arveladze last week when he was over at Maccabi Tel Aviv. He said we'd rather be Prime Minister than manage the Georgian team. It's that tough a job. Tamari Ketsbaya, I think, in the Mail today, saying the same thing. Really, that Ireland would be too strong. And ultimately, I think, you have to take that as significant. Maybe people are just hyper negative, whatever country they're in, about their own team. Maybe we can be guilty of it here. But I think really, if you're going to qualify or have a chance of qualifying, you should be capable of beating Georgia home. I think we will. It may well be an emphatic 1-0 success.
Good stuff. Doesn't really inspire us at all. Thanks a million, gents. And don't forget to join us later on this evening from here in the Aviva Fan Studio pre-kickoff, where we're going to be joined by comedian Al Foran and also Kevin Caban. We'll be talking you through the team